Okay, so we are live. I'm going to double check things are working and running smoothly here. I think there's usually a few seconds of a delay across YouTube and X, but we'll give it a few seconds to check in. We are joined by Mr. Jared Lawrence today on our deep dive into the Bittensor Tau and subnet ecosystem once again. So Jared, thank you very much for taking the time to jump on and have a conversation today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So, yeah, maybe I just want to triple check that we are indeed live and streaming because I'm still not seeing it coming up on YouTube. Okay, yeah, I can see we're working. So maybe just for those who have never come across you, I'd love to just give you an opportunity to briefly introduce yourself. I've come across you from going deep on at everything happening in the BitTensor space and wanting to continue to enhance my own understanding of this ecosystem. So you definitely share a lot of good insights, and you seem to be pretty on top of a lot of stuff happening in the ecosystem. So yeah, would love to just give you an opportunity to share a brief introduction, and we can get into some of the juicy stuff then.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm by no means an expert, by no means a technical wizard, nothing of the sorts there. I come from a traditional business background. So running hotels, operations. I have a cleaning business as well, which I run remotely. So that's where my head sort of positions when I'm looking at subnets in particular. But ultimately, I'm a trader. So I've traded multiple markets for quite a number of years. From stocks, commodities, and various different fashions. Mainly moved into crypto about 5 years ago, leverage trading. And then the last year, it was just like I understood Tao. I'm in Simon's trading group as well. So he introduced us all to Tao Bittensor a couple of years ago. And just gradually over time, my pot just started going 50% Tao, 70% Tao, 80% Tao until I'm 100% Tao. And then D Tao comes out and it's like,
Mhm.
once you click with it and you see the opportunity, you just see nothing else but Tau subnets. How much Tau can I accumulate in my Tau pot? And it's just that no USD value anymore. It's just how much Tau can I accumulate? And it's from a trading perspective, it's very different. So it's not just me looking at charts anymore. So it's like I would just look at the charts and I'll tell you the news. Whereas now it's like I've got to use my business brain, which is cool. So it's tying two things together. So I'm really really enjoying it.
Yeah, amazing. What did that journey look like for you? Because I feel a lot of people who get involved in BitTensor and Tau, they have some kind of previous Bitcoin or crypto knowledge or insights. Maybe they've been in the industry for a few years, and then a lot of the stuff with the incentive mechanism, the tokenomics in Tau, align very much with the core thesis of Bitcoin, and so I think that's what resonates with a lot of people. You mentioned your trading background, so how did that evolve from not ever even having heard of Tau to kind of going almost all in on this ecosystem? Like what did that trajectory look like for you? Because I feel like it's a little bit different for everyone.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, once you, the first thing with crypto and Bitcoin and everything is understanding the financial system and the nuances and the issues with that, which leads you to being right. How much Bitcoin can I accumulate? So it's like my whole pot value needs to be done in Bitcoin. So it started with that thesis, trading altcoins to accumulate more Bitcoin. But over time, it's just sort of shifted towards different projects which have more value or that are more interesting. And it was one of those like once you start understanding about Tau and what it's actually doing and how there's 128 subnets which are actually businesses which are actually producing and generating economic output, you start going, okay, so it's got Bitcoin's tokenomics, it's got all of the other good things from a lot of other areas, and it's building 128 businesses on top of it, which are all using an incentive mechanism to continuously learn and improve over time. It's like
Mhm.
you just can't beat that setup in an
Yeah.
in an AI world where we're moving. But I thank Siam for positioning us in this because he did all the work in the early days. I'm in his group and he's been all in on Tau and only
Mhm.
thinking about Tau for 2 years. So
Yeah.
credit to him.
Yeah, absolutely. What did that look like? Because with your trading background, I'm assuming we're trading crypto and maybe main assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, etc. Um, is that still part of what you execute on in your daily life, or are you very much focused on subnets and Tau? And is there still are you still trading those other assets in crypto as well?
I do have some small positions I had in gold miners and some crypto miners and stocks, but it's a very small percentage of my portfolio. But literally the last 6 months, it's just slowly shifted into me trading detail full time because of the fact that you can earn a multiple on the subnet increasing in price and then earn a multiple on the tau price going up as well. I just couldn't see a better ROI or risk reward ratio, and with the tau price having such upside potential, it's like nothing else made sense. So
Mhm.
no, I'm not doing too much.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's definitely addicting when you get into the subnets and you start seeing the opportunities. Like I said, guys, Jared shares really good insights on X. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I've just put his X handle up on the screen. So make sure to go and follow him, check out the content, and if you want to learn more, obviously not financial advice, but Jared does share some really good insights. So look, Jared, you started getting into it already with regards to the opportunities in Tau and DTAU. Right now in the markets, we're seeing a little bit of a pullback. We're seeing Bitcoin back at around 95, 96K at this time right now. And Tau itself is pulling back to, I think we're around 328, 330 right now. So how are you feeling about things? Because I think for people who've been in crypto for a few years, there is this 4-year cycle that Bitcoin has typically followed, and the entire alt market have kind of been in a follow the leader kind of system for the past few cycles. And there's a lot of theories out there, and different people have different theses, but a lot of talk around the fact that maybe we're going to have an extended cycle. Maybe we're going to see um, price action move higher into Q1, Q2 2026. Obviously, not going to hold you to any predictions here, but how are you seeing things from your perspective right now? And for better or for worse, I think Bittensor and Tau maybe hasn't fully decoupled from the rest of the market. It's not immune to what happens with Bitcoin and crypto in general, at least not fully just yet. So, yeah, would love to kind of hear how you're seeing things, how you're feeling about the general picture, and then we can dive into Tau and subnets more specifically.
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? And it is slightly concerning considering time frames and where we are. And, the traditional 4-year cycle would finish on the 1st of December plus or minus 30 days. So everyone only goes off history as to that repeating again. But I think in terms of Bitcoin and crypto has never been in this macroeconomic environment. So we can kind of understand that there might be some nuances to that. We've had a shorter cycle before in 2013. It's possible we could have a longer one. And I think the main issue here was the fact that the US didn't lower the interest rates with the rest of the world like Europe was doing. And then that sort of put a brakes on the liquidity coming back into the system. So ultimately, it's a liquidity thing. And I go down many rabbit holes. I'm not going to go into that. I have quite a contrarian point of view with a lot of things. And I'm sure a lot of people would probably be like, what the hell is he talking about if I actually dived into it? But yeah, I can understand what sort of Raoul Pal and the extended cycle liquiditists are saying because, interest rates are coming down. It slowly works its way back into the system. We just had a government shutdown, so there's an argument for that. There's no spending. They drain the treasury account, and then they have to build all that back up. So it might, we don't start proper QE until February, and then that takes time to filter down into risk assets. But I don't know. I just have this in the back of my mind that we need something to break for them to give the excuse to do a QE bomb. As
Mhm.
always, there is something. It's COVID that the system breaks, and they have to print 2008 is some systemic crash, financial crisis. Then they do a QE bomb. There's always something, so they have the excuse to do it. So I have that in the back of my mind. And I'm a cycle trader by trade. So at the moment,
Mhm.
we're in a daily and weekly cycle moment in the US stock market and on Bitcoin. So I'm absolutely okay with where the market's going. And with sentiment the way it is, it's usually a good sign of leverage trades getting flushed out, sentiment getting flushed out, and then we continue a leg higher. But it is one of those timing, 4-year cycle. How far do we push it? My base case is we've still got a final leg, and then we'll head down into a 4-year cycle sort of towards the end of 2026. So I'm sticking with that for now. I'm confident we will have a blow off top because we haven't really seen that proper greed and euphoria yet. So let's see. Let's see. I'm going with that for now.
Yeah. I think I generally would have a similar base case in line with the fact that we haven't seen that blow off top. And if 126 was indeed the top, I don't really have a lot of fear about the drawdown because we didn't have the blow off top to bring us to 126 and that kind of emotional overreaction with the market. So I like that take, and I think we'll have to wait and see. I think we're going to get an answer either way here in the next couple months. Look, let's dive into Tau. There's a lot of interesting things happening in the ecosystem right now. I think one of the biggest things over the past week or two has been this new Tau Flow update and essentially a network enhancement, let's call it maybe, in order to maybe make it a little bit more fair on subnets who are a little bit newer in the ecosystem, but lots of changes with how the emissions are earned by individual subnets based on the net flows of how many people are purchasing versus selling the subnet alpha tokens. Could you maybe give me a little bit of an insight onto your understanding of Tau Flow and maybe how some of those effects are already being felt, and maybe what you feel it means for subnets over the next couple of months? I'm sharing my screen here as well just to illustrate some of this on Tau Stats, because they've started adding the ability to track these flows day by day as well. So yeah, curious to hear your thoughts and how you think it's being digested.
Yeah, again, I'm not a technical wizard by any means, but it's good because Tau flow for me equals cash flow. So all subnets in my mind are a individual business, and then within that you'll have the figures, the profit, the revenue coming in, which would be emissions or external revenue to Bittensor if it's got a product or service that sells data or something, and then you have your operations, your OPEX or your expenses that are going out. So that creates your cash flow. So that's all I see Tau Flow as. So what it has done is incentivized subnets to be more focused on how they're balancing their books. Essentially, we need to bring money in. We need external capital, so we can, we can then pay the miners with external revenue rather than the emissions, or we can burn emissions, and that's more positive for Tau Flow. So I think from a business perspective, it's a very positive move. There has been some people talking about it recently because it can be gamed slightly by the lower price subnets, the ones that aren't necessarily being as productive as other ones. So because they have less outflows, they can just essentially burn their emissions and prop up their price. And I think we've seen that over the last week or so. We've had a lot of more lower price subnets going up the charts quicker, and it's still a speculative market. So people are rotating out of those higher priced subnets, which are, producing value, and going into the more speculative ones to get a higher return on investment, which I can understand. And I've been doing myself as a trader. So yeah, absolutely. But ultimately, I think once the EMA because what it does, it goes from a 0% weighting to a 50% weighting over 15 days, I think it is, and then up to 100% weighting of the new emissions coming in. So from the old system being priced to the new system being done by Tau Flow. So it's a gradual transition, which is good. So I think as we see that push on more, we'll see more subnets changing the way that they are operating and being more focused on Tau Flow, making sure that there's less outflows, and then they're going to ultimately earn more emissions by pushing their price up. So I think it's a good thing, and I think there'll be a bit of a race on for the last sort of 15 days for people to get up the leaderboard to earn more emissions before the halving comes in.
Yeah, interesting timing with it lining up very close with the halving as well, which does bring us on to the topic of the halving. We're 27 days out. How do you see that potentially impacting the ecosystem? And I guess I'm not just talking about price, because I think it will help squeeze price to the upside for Tau in US dollar terms. Personally, I think that takes 6 to 12 months to play out post halving. But do you think there's going to be any immediate effect of the halving? Will it be a sell the news event? Will there be an impact on subnet subnet prices? How are you seeing the impact of this in the next 27 days?
So I see a good run up, which is obviously market wide. If the markets are tanking, I imagine it's going to have an effect on the Tau price. But in general, you would like to think that there's a run up, as we have traditionally done in the Bitcoin market, and then possibly a little bit of a sell the news event, because from a technical perspective, the subnets are now, or the miners are now earning half the amount. So they have to reshuffle their operations, they have to move things around. So there is going to be an element of volatility there, as with the Bitcoin halvings. And then after that, there's been like a strong midterm increase in terms of price. So yeah, I mean, my concern is more for subnets that are maybe struggling, haven't generated any revenue yet, maybe aren't quite at product or service stage, and then instantly their emissions get cut in half, and they haven't got the capital backing to, have a 6-month runway or cash in the bank to actually be able to pay for the operations to continue building or generating the product, etc. So I think that's my concern.
Yeah.
But again, game theory is pushing out the weak natural selection and helping bringing the stronger ones. So as harsh as it may sound, I think that's ultimately what Bittensor is about. So yeah, bring it on, I suppose.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, you touched on a point there about a potential rally into the halving. With my amateur TA skills, probably not on the level of yours, Jared. I'm just sharing the Tau chart on my screen, but the way that I was looking at this was, we got a little bit of a breakout from this longer term downtrend going back to the highs of the first week of December from 2024. We broke out here in October. We came all the way up to 540-ish, and now we've come back down to retest this trend line, which for now at least is holding. Do you see the same thing on the chart? Are you looking at things a little bit differently for Tau's price action? Is it potential that we get this bounce, and that is a bounce off of the trend to bring us a little bit higher into the halving? What are you seeing on the chart for Tau?
Yeah. As you touched on earlier, it's still not decoupled from the market. So really, we need to be looking at Bitcoin in general. We're at that stage in the cycle where it sort of gets to the bit where we're looking at Bitcoin dominance as well. If we see Bitcoin dominance dropping, which it kind of looks like it's been in a rising wedge for a while, and it's slowly been grinding up, and it is just starting to turn around today, which is interesting, with gold topping as well, or having a lower high. So I've got my eyes on that. If that starts dropping, that's a good sign of money flowing out of Bitcoin into Ethereum and other large caps and working its way down the risk curve, essentially. So that would be a huge positive, but we still want to see Bitcoin recover at least, or some strength in Ethereum and XRP, etc. But from Tau's perspective, in late 2023, early 2024, it actually was front running Bitcoin a lot. Don't know if you remember that. But when we first got in, I think it was around 100 price for per Tau, 150. It performed really, really well. So I kind of am expecting that again as network effects kick in. It's a shame that we couldn't hold above the 500 level. There's a really strong level there, which would have been good to hold, but I think it's just an overreaction because of the market, everything else going down as well. So yeah, let's see. We want a strong bounce in the next week or so, and then we'll go from there. But in markets, who knows? Literally, you've got to be open to absolutely everything, so you can make money whether it's going up or it's going down, and that's ultimately the philosophy you need.
Yeah. Thank you for those insights. I think a little bit of coiling up happening here on the chart, and hopefully we can get that bounce. I mean, if we drop below 300 again, not financial advice, but I'll probably have to buy a little bit more. Just it's too lucrative. So look, one of the other updates we've been seeing, Jared, in the space over the past few weeks is subnet alpha tokens getting listed on centralized exchanges. So I think we have 3, if not maybe even more now. I haven't seen updates in the past couple of days, but Liam, Shoots, and Hippias, all available for purchase and trading on MEXC. Obviously, MEXC being one of the larger centralized exchanges focused on futures trading. And in my opinion, this is just another way that more liquidity can flow directly into subnets. They're trading against USDT pairs on MEXC. And I think this could be the beginning of a larger trend where we see a lot more centralized exchanges beginning to list individual subnet alpha tokens. So, what are you feeling about this? Any thoughts, and bullish or not bullish on this advancement?
Yeah, there's a couple of mixed opinions on it, to be honest. But ultimately, if you look at it over the long term, it's only got to be a positive. More eyes on Bittensor, more liquidity on Bittensor and into Tau, and therefore more liquidity into the subnets. From trading subnets for the last 6 months, the one thing that I have noticed is a huge lack of liquidity. So each liquidity pool is very small. So when you're, some of the subnets that are lower priced, you're having to scale in 1 or 2 or even less Tau at a time to get yourself a position, and you can move the price by 5, 10%, 20%, depending on your size, very easily. So we really need to grow those liquidity pools. And try and reduce the volatility over time. So this is a positive in my mind.
Yeah, I think it's the start of a broader trend. I mean, ultimately, if we're going to see Bittensor getting wider adoption, I think yes, it's great that you can set up a self-custody wallet. You can get capital into that wallet using the likes of whether it's Binance, Coinbase, but other centralized exchanges to purchase that Tau. There is still just a little bit of a barrier because you have to get that Tau and use a Bittensor wallet or use Backprop Finance or Tau Stats or Tau app to access those subnet alpha tokens. So I think it's a necessary development if we're going to see wider and broader adoption of subnets. And I think it's only a matter of time before we see a few more centralized exchanges following in MEXC's footsteps. So yeah, I
mean,
think
if you can trade meme coins, and like all of them have phantom wallets and MetaMask wallets and stuff, and think how the market caps and all of those shit coins that do absolutely nothing in terms of value. So if they can do that and they're trading them for speculative reasons because it's funny or whatever they're doing, trying to make money, then they can absolutely come and use a talisman extension and the few other options that they are. So I don't see that being a problem. But in terms of having an asset that is a bit more complicated than others, is as long as you can try and make it as easy as possible for as many people as possible to come in, then you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you can understand a software wallet, you can definitely understand Bittensor, but it's also like another ecosystem for people. They're like, oh, I have my Phantom. Can I not just use my Phantom wallet? And then they have to figure out that, okay, I need a separate dedicated wallet and I need to do a couple of extra steps. But this brings us on to another advancement with General Tau Ventures and some of the stuff these guys are doing with Chainlink CCIP and making subnets accessible via the base network. And so my understanding of this, Jared, is you have General Tau Ventures and they are creating this connection to essentially have subnet alpha tokens available on the base network. And the Chainlink CCIP is the link to make them ultimately pseudo-native subnet alpha tokens. It's not like they're wrapped versions of subnet alpha tokens on base. That is my understanding. And there's some connections between General Tau Ventures and subnet number 35, Cartha. And I interviewed the guys from Cartha a few weeks ago on the channel, and they're building 0x Markets, which is a perpdex on the Bittensor network. And all the liquidity side of things is being powered by subnet 35 for 0x Markets, but they're actually building it on the base network. And so I'm thinking that the connection here with General Tau Ventures using Chainlink CCIP to make subnet alpha tokens accessible on base is tying in with how they're actually building 0x Markets on the base network. And I think you said you've been following these guys for a little bit as well. So I guess this is just another way to lower the barrier to entry where people are familiar with EVM wallets and the base network. they can now and will now be able to access subnet alpha tokens directly on base and using dexes like Aerodrome. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I really like those guys as well. Victor from General Tower Ventures sounds spot on. He's switched on. I've been sort of trading in and out of Subnet 35 as well. They've been doing really well, and they're also on it with their Tau flow. So in terms of the how positive their Tau flow has been over the last 7 to 10 days, it's been really good. So I'm keeping an eye on that. There's also another decentralized exchange. Have you heard with Rubicon, which is one recent one? It's only because Sebi from Resi Subnet 46 mentioned that they will be getting listed on Mexi and on Rubicon. And then I was like, I hadn't heard of that. I had a look, and it was they're powered by Optimism, Arbitrum Base, and also it's traded on Coinbase, which is another avenue. So that's cool.
Yeah, and then there's also 10Xium, which I was looking at the other day. I think you were checking these out as well. So you can provide liquidity over here on 10Xium, and you're currently getting paid 63% for deploying your Tau into the liquidity pool, where essentially you're acting as the counterparty. And for people who are familiar with other perp dexes like Aster, Avantis, Hyperliquid, etc., there's liquidity pools where you can simply deploy USDC stablecoin and you're acting as the counterparty and earning yield. My understanding here, and I did ask the guys they're putting together a video for how to set up and integrate the the Bittensor hotkey to enable LPing, because it is a little bit technical. But yeah, you're going to be able to deploy your Tau in here, and right now you're getting paid 60% for acting as that counterparty. Have you tested this? Have you seen anything on this side?
No, I tried to set up a wallet the other day, and it was with the Phantom wallet and messing around a bit, but it didn't work, but I'll try again. But it did get me thinking, because as a trader, top of the cycle, scale out, come back into USDT, buy or scale back in, accumulate near the bottom. But my brain is shifting towards the potentialities of maybe holding a decent chunk of Tau and earning yield, which some of the subnet yields are crazy, let alone doing things like this, as long as it's safe. It could be a really good option for the bear market if you're accumulating more Tau, if you're always thinking in terms of Tau. So really cool.
Yeah, I would anticipate this coming down a little bit over time, but my understanding is that it is Tau that you're depositing, because when you look at the top liquidity providers, they're denominating their deposits in Tau, but it's also showing you that, if you're deploying 300 Tau, you're earning half a Tau per day. So pretty fantastic returns. And I actually reverse engineered this calculation the other day, and it was quoting even higher than 63%. So yeah, definitely some very interesting opportunities.
Yeah, that depends how high this cycle we go with Tau, and then where the bear market bottom comes. Because if we come back down to 500 and we base around there, then it's and you're earning half a Tau a day or a Tau a day, depending on the size of your bag that you have in there. Then you're talking good money for doing not a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely beats staking to root, but there's also an added layer of risk, you could argue, by using a third-party protocol, and then
of course
you're probably not going to want to do this with your whole bag. But I agree, like, it could be a very strategic way to allocate a portion of that Tau during a sideways or bear market to be getting even 20 to 25% would be doing 4 to 5x better than staking to root. So definitely an interesting thing to consider. I think one of the other updates that you've been on the pulse with over the past week or so is Bitcast and the new rollout of their X mining. And so I've been mining on Bitcast for the past number of months with YouTube, because that was their first use case. And over the past week, they've rolled out the introduction of mining on X. So would love you to give maybe a summary of this from your perspective. And I've already been noticing some interesting things, like comparing YouTube to X. So I can talk about that in a moment. But yeah, maybe for anyone who's not familiar with Bitcast and doesn't understand this subnet and what this means for being able to mine on X, you could give us a brief overview.
Yeah, I love Bitcast. I mean, from a business perspective, it's super easy to understand. So, it always used to confuse me what mining was, but mining on Bitcast means to create content, and it's the easiest way to mine on the whole of the Bittensor ecosystem, I believe. So you literally just get picked. So at the moment, it's the top 150 creators who get the most engagement from the top accounts. They select you, and then you get positioned as a miner. You create briefs around specific subnets, so for example, Autopia. You post that, and then you get rewarded in Tau depending on how that post performs. Really cool, really simple. But not only that, from a broader business perspective, if you're looking at it from cutting out the middlemen. So instead
Mhm.
of like a marketing agency trying to find creators to build a brand or a video around Nike or clothing, you can get rid of all of their fees and all of the middleman and just go direct. So the Nike can go to Bitcast and go, I have a budget of £50,000 and I want it to be spread over X to X amount of people. So it doesn't mean they have to have 10 million followers. They
Mhm.
can have 10,000 followers and be in a niche market. And it's just a really good way of any business being able to allocate X amount of budget. Could be £50 if that's all they've got, but that could still be used in a good way to spread their message of what they're doing. So cool. I really, really, really like it. It's great.
Yeah, I love that summary. And so we can already see that with Bitcast, the score brief was the first brief. So we had a whole bunch of X accounts and eligible miners, because I think that's the other component to explain briefly. The way that they're doing this on X is that you have the top 150 quote unquote thought leaders related to Bittensor who are eligible to mine on X for Bitcast. Now, they have a list of almost 400 different accounts here right now, and all of those accounts are given a score based on essentially how they interact with each other and how they get engagement from other thought leaders in the Tau ecosystem. And when they tweet about a brief, in this first example, score subnet, they they then get a score based on how much engagement they get on the post, and subsequently the pot or the budget that was allocated to that particular brief is distributed amongst those who get the most engagement. So this initial budget for the first score brief was $1,000, and that is getting distributed to the miners or the thought leaders. You mentioned Siam earlier, Mark Jeffrey, Everett TT. So the people who are getting engagement on their posts are essentially earning that that budget, and obviously the people who get the most engagement get more of that, and those who get less get slightly less. But definitely a very efficient mechanism for being able to reward people who have the ability to garner attention, and then, like you alluded to, makes it so much more efficient for anyone who's looking to allocate budget towards getting attention as well. um so yeah, I think you described it perfectly. Any initial things that you're seeing with the rollout of this? Any things that you are noticing with the people that are involved here? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've seen a few people mentioning about it becoming a little bit because it's only around the BitTensor space at the moment, and
Mhm.
obviously there might be a brief that you might not agree with, yet you're doing it because you want to earn some tau. And I suppose
Mhm.
there's always going to be that element of it, but it's such a new business, it's a new ecosystem. We just have to roll it out, get some feedback, and change as you go. And I'm sure Tom and the team from there will do that, as everyone does in tau, because that's the nature of it.
Yeah, absolutely. From being one of the early miners on Bitcast with YouTube, I know that in those first couple months there was a lot of iteration. There was the need to refine the incentive mechanism, and also refine the way that the briefs were distributed, scored, and subsequently rewarded, because there was people who were gaming the system in the first few weeks, and then they had to make changes. They had to improve the way that they were scoring outputs on the subnet. And so this is the first experiment, like you said, with the first brief. And I think it went pretty smoothly for the most part. I know that they've been working on it for months before they released it here this past week, but you're right. I think there's going to be feedback. There's going to be things to improve upon, and I think that's why they went with lower budget briefs to begin with, so that they can iron out those kinks with the first few briefs, and then incorporate, iterate, and improve. Absolutely.
Yeah, I look, and I'm looking at that from a trading investing point of view and going, okay, so now they're doing briefs, and the next brief is video subnet 85. I'm thinking more attention on that. Is there some arbitrage or a way to, invest in that before they start, all of these X accounts start posting about that? Plus, I love subnet 85 anyway. I think it's an amazing project and massively undervalued, but.
Yep, we can dive into that another day, I think, because Gareth and the team there are doing very interesting stuff with video compression. Maybe that's a good segue into kind of maybe the final couple of points here, Jared. What subnets are piquing your interest right now? And I know there's so many subnets that are doing such solid fundamental business building. They're dialing in incentive mechanisms, very interesting use cases, and the way that they're incentivizing miners to provide intelligence is, for me, there's just so many interesting options. So curious, maybe from a fundamental standpoint, and maybe also from a technical standpoint, because you've got a good TA background. Maybe there's a few charts that look particularly nice for you, and then maybe there's a few subnets that kind of line up really nicely, that their charts are looking amazing and they've got super solid fundamentals. So curious to kind of hear your take, and if there's any noteworthy subnets that you're following. And of course, nothing is financial advice.
Yeah, or shilling my own bags.
Yeah,
I'll try not to. So as I touched on earlier, it's like I'd look at the charts and then I'd tell you the news. So I've had to shift, and as I've been in this, I've sort of shifted now to maybe 80% technical analysis, 20% fundamental analysis, because you have to, because there's announcements and changes being made, and who's closest to revenue, etc. So. But from my business background, I'm sort of sticking to the subnets I really understand. There's so many that I don't understand. I'm not going to pretend to understand. They're far beyond my pay grade, and they're too technical for me. I'd love to, but I just don't. So as you touched on, the subnets that are doing real world things that I can understand, like Hippias, data storage, decentralized, massive reduction of cost. Subnet 75, I can see that. Subnet 85 is video compression. So I can see that as a product. 93 is Bitcast again. So really good, clear, easy way to understand how that provides value. 71 is lead generation. And competing or creating a competition around getting the best leads possible and sending them to a business. So, if you can get good leads to any business, that's hugely valuable.
This is lead poet you're referring to? Yeah.
Yeah, lead poet. Yeah, I can see the potential there. They're not quite at revenue yet and a little bit behind. So there's some nuances you need to understand within that, but there is potential. And then I'm again, AI agents, I can see how powerful they're going to be within small businesses, bigger businesses, and how much that will increase production and reduce cost for businesses. So subnets that are agentic or based around AI agents, like subnets 121 or Sunday Bar and Autopia, which is subnet 36, I think will do very well personally. So I like them because I can understand them. So yeah.
Yeah. Other question for you: how much? And I'll share my screen to illustrate this again, if I can. How much do you feel you can rely on the technical analysis side of things with subnets? And the only reason I'm saying that is because we know so many of the subnets are relatively young. We had the detail upgrade in February. Yes, there was some subnets before that, but a large amount of subnets have kind of been seeing price action that only has a few months of data. And so I'm just curious, and there's no right or wrong answer, but I guess, do you still find the rules of TA apply pretty well with the subnet charts when you're doing technical analysis, or does it differ when you're thinking about it compared to traditional crypto asset like Bitcoin, Solana, Ethereum?
So when in any market is driven by human psychology. So when you have human psychology, there's emotions, and there's emotions based around financial decision making, and those decisions create patterns within charts. So yes, you can absolutely do some form of TA, but then the nuance is the low liquidity. You might get a whale selling 1,000 tau. There's an announcement or a hack or something because of the low liquidity. Liquidity can ruin the chart. And there has been some elements around, revenue searches and a few other things that go on within the ecosystem where there's pump and dumps going on, or coordinated telegrams going, let's all buy this and then we'll take profits here. And you're seeing natural rotation. So yes, absolutely, you can. And I have been doing very profitably over the last 6 months, but take it with a pinch of salt in case, there are other elements involved. I think that's ultimately it until we see more liquidity.
Yeah, fair, absolutely. Jared, really appreciate you taking the time to come on and have a conversation. Lots of great insights. Again, for anyone who wants to follow Jared, guys, make sure to check him out on X. I'm going to put up his handle here again on the screen. Any final words of wisdom, Jared? Anything you want to leave us with in terms of something to think about related to Bittensor, or anything else that you think is worth people's time to, allocate a couple hours to research something in the ecosystem?
I mean, if you haven't heard of Bittensor or Tau before, like when you're first understanding Bitcoin, do at least 10 hours of diving into it to really understand what's going on. Otherwise, you're just not going to get it, and you're not going to have any plays you can be more convicted in to invest in. But I just see it as one of the biggest opportunities of the next 3 to 5 years, let's say maybe 10 years, but let's just say 3 to 5 years in terms of upside potential. I see it as massive. You might not get this opportunity again. It's really to that level, but you need to understand why that is the case. And then once you understand why that is the case, dive into the subnets and what they're doing and try and see how innovative and disruptive they are going to be in each individual industry that they are operating. And then you might see the potential. But just, do not miss out on this if you're interested in this, and spend some time to understand.
Yeah, we got a few people in the chat as well mentioning, I think Carmelo saying he started with 44 tau at the end of August, and he managed to get up to his initial target of over 100 tau from trading. So he's following in your footsteps there as well, which is a fantastic ROI in the past few months. So yeah, well done, Carmelo. Crypto World is saying that Tau subnets are solving so many real world problems. And yeah, that's what I love about it. Like, there's just so much solid fundamentals. I think the price has to catch up. Like so many other projects in crypto, Jared, as you probably know, the fundamentals under the hood actually don't live up to the price that the ecosystem or the asset is at. But I think it's almost the inverse for Tau, where there's so many solid fundamentals that price needs to catch up.
Definitely, yeah. Similar to Ethereum and network effects in 2017, but I mean, Tau easily surpasses what's being done here than Ethereum back then. So look at the charts.
Yeah. Rudy saying Jared is a legend. I agree. We've got, is there any way to know and check every time a new subnet is launched in Tau? So there is a temporary hard cap of 128 subnets right now. You can keep an eye on inactive subnets and deregistrations in Tau stats. That's what I use. And then just keeping a pulse on X, like follow Jared, follow a few other influencers in the space, and you'll be able to have a pretty good pulse on when a subnet gets deregistered and gets picked up by new owners. But I would use Tau stats personally for that. Jared, any other way that you stay on top of that?
Tau Daily is good. Taudaily.io. There's also Galaxy Insights as well, but that's fairly new, and there's been a few things maybe that aren't factually correct, so that has time to work itself out. But there are plenty of news sources. I like Tau Daily, Tau Stats X. So
Yeah, awesome.
Discord, the Discord's great.
Yeah, every individual subnet has their own channel on Discord, so definitely check that out. And then Crypto World is saying, could you please ask which would be the most underrated subnet of Tau? Jared, any thoughts? It's a big question.
What's my biggest bag?
Yeah.
Underrated. Looking at a difference in terms of like what the price potential is at the moment, it's like something like Resi 46 has just been hammered. It's had a lot of issues. It's just been hammered in terms of price. And Sebi is a killer. I've spoken to him on calls and I speak to him quite regularly. He's a legend. He works super hard. He's in a space with like a massive industry. It's in the real estate super intelligence and tokenizing and creating data around that. So I see huge scope for that. It might take time to play out, but at the price now and what they're doing, incredible. Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah, I agree. I think Resi has a big future. I would say Bitcast, but then I'm also like Bitcast is also up 500% since like May or June. So
yeah,
but I still think it has so much potential. But I really like Resi. I think Ridges has been doing some amazing things with coding agents, and I think there's a big future for Ridges. I think Cursor was just valued at 30 billion, 29 billion with the latest round of funding they did, and Ridges is currently at like a 65 to 70 million dollar market cap. So even if Ridges, I think I replied to someone on X last night, even if Ridges only gets to 1/10 of what Cursor is currently valued at, it's like a 40x from here. So yeah, there's
and
lots
it's
of
a better
potential.
product.
Yeah, exactly. Look, Jared, once again, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you for taking the time. It's been a pleasure to connect. We will have to get you back again for some updates, maybe in a few weeks. So really appreciate it. Follow Jared on X, guys, as always, and make sure to comment and subscribe below. I'm going to try go live a little bit more frequently on YouTube and X, and so if you want to see and catch those updates, make sure you're subscribed and followed. And yeah, we'll catch you in the next one.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks, Jared.